Shalom Rabosai, it's Rabbi Flexure. I hope you guys are doing well. It's Sunday evening right now. I'm at Model UN, and as you know, I won't be back with you until Wednesday. So what I would like you guys to work on over the next 2 days, it really should not take you long, is to finish the Perek. We're going to be starting today on Yud Dal Amud Beis over here by the 2 dots, and we'll go on to the next Amud and finish the first Perek of Taanis. Please use the handout sheet that's posted in Haiku to go along with this. If you follow along with the handout sheet, I think everything will be very clear, and you could fill it out as you go along. Let's begin. B'sheni matin im chashecha v'chamishi kol yom mivnei kol Shabbos. So our Mishnah told us that during the 7 final fasts, the stores are closed on Monday, and they're opened a little bit close to nighttime for people to buy food to break their fast. And on Thursday, it's open the whole day because of Kavod Shabbos. Now the Gemara is going to try to understand exactly what's going on here. So Ibailu, they asked the question. Heichi Kitani. So how are we to learn out this case? Bebeis matinim chashecha uvehei kol yom v'nei Kavod Shabbos. Is it that on Monday we partially open the stores towards night, and on Thursday we open the doors, but again only partially open the doors, but this time the whole day, not just close to the nighttime, with Bnei Kavod Shabbos, because of Kavod Shabbos. O Dilma, or perhaps the case is V'sheni Matan, on Monday we partially open the doors, but for the entire day, v'chamishi poschin kol hayom kulo, and on Thursday we open the doors completely for the entire day. So which version is it? Which is the Mishnah teaching us? So the Gemara answers, Tashma, come and learn from the following. Brisa, Desanya, we learn in Brisa, B'sheni matin ad ha'arev, v'chamishi poschin kol hayom kulo mipnei kavod Shabbos. That on Monday, you open the doors partially towards evening, but on Thursdays, the doors are open all the way for the entire day because Kavod Shabbos. So actually what you see is that it's a combination between version A and version B, that on Mondays, the doors are only open partially close to the evening, but on Thursdays, the doors are open completely and for the entire day. So it's actually a combination of the 2 opinions. And the Gemara expounds on this. Hayu lo shnei pisachim. What does it mean to partially open your stores? So if you have 2 doors, if you have, a wide entrance for your store, poseach echad v'no echad, you would only open up one of the 2 doors and leave the other one locked, thereby making the entrance to your store smaller. Hayu lo itztaba keneged pischo poseach kedarcho v'no choshesh. And if you had some type of bench that was by the opening of your store that would block people from getting in, you would open your door that way, and you don't have to be concerned about it blocking people's way. That would also be considered partially opening up your store. That's the first part of this Gemara. The next part of the Gemara is as follows. The Mishnah had said, Avru elu v'lo na'anu mimatin b'maso v'matan v'vinyan v'nitiya. If these 7 fasts have passed and we're still not answered, so we decrease our involvement in doing business and in building and in planting. We explained that all these things are joyous in nature. To do business and to make money and to build and to see new things and to build new things is all joyous in nature. So now the Gemara is going to expound on what it means building and planting as a joyous activity. So Tana, Binyan shel simcha, netiya shel simcha. We're talking about building that's of simcha and planting that's of simcha, to exclude that if you built something that's just necessary, or you planted something necessary, that would not be included in this prohibition. So for an example, if your toilet is broken, so that's not simcha, that's just you need to fix your plumbing. That would not be considered simcha. Adding a new room with a big screen TV, that would be simcha. So Ezehu binyan shel simcha. So the Gemara wants to know what's an example of building that's considered joyous. So Zeh habone beis chasnus livno. This is a person like a father who builds a beis chasnus, which is basically he builds a chuppah for his son. Building a chuppah for your son is obviously very joyous. So this we would not do during this time period. The Gemara asks further, Ezehu hi netiya shel simcha. What is planting as a planting of simcha? So the Gemara says, Zeh hanoteya avranki shel malachim. This is one who plants a tree of kings. Now, what does it mean, planting a tree of kings? So actually, Rashi gives two interpretations of what this means. So one interpretation is that it was customary to plant a tree when the king had a son. And whenever a son was born to the king, they planted a tree. And once that son would take over as king, they would take the wood from that tree and make it into the king's throne. And if someone plants such a tree, that's a joyous thing. And the other thing that Rashi says is that it was customary for kings to plant large trees for shade, for them to walk under for shade. So again, a person who plants this type of tree that's a activity that is associated with simcha. Let's continue on. So the Mishnah had also stated that uve she'ela shalom, that during this time period of mourning, of tshuva, when we still have not had rain after all the 13 fasts, we do not greet each other, which is also what we do on Tisha B'Av. We're not supposed to greet each other. So the Gemara says, Taner Banan, Chaverim ein shila shalom beinehem. When it comes to Chaverim, which in this case means Talmidei Chachamim, people who learn Torah, they do not greet one another. Amei haaretz shesholin machzirin lahem Besafa, Rafa, Uvechoved, Rosh. However, the Amei Haaretz, people who don't know any better, they greet people because they don't know not to greet people. So what happens if an Amei Haaretz says hello to a Talmud Chacham? So the Gemara says, Machzirin lahem Besafa, Rafa. You should respond, because Rashi says if you don't respond, it's going to cause feelings of hatred and disgust. So you should respond. You should not ignore them. But you do so Safa Rafa, in a low voice, in a low tone. You want to sound subdued, you want to sound mellow, you want to sound upset. Uvechoved Rosh, and with your head tilted downwards. You look sad, you look upset, and therefore you should have your head down in that position. Vehein misatvin v'yoshbin ke'avelim, and these Talmidei Chachamim should wrap themselves like mourners. Nudin, and like people who are excommunicated, Kivnei Adam and Azufin Lamakom, like people who have been rejected, who have been rebuked by the Ribono Shel Olam, Ad Sheyirachmu Aleim Min Hashemayim, until Hashem has rachamim on us and answers our tefillos, and He has mercy on us. The Gemara is now going to conclude the Perek, mentioning a few things that a person should not do during this time period of fasting and of tshuva. Amar Rav Elazar. Rav Elazar said, Ein adam chashuv rashai lipo apanav. A person who is important, a person who has a certain status, should not fall on his face, meaning he should not be so emotional that he falls on the floor in davening in public. Ela im kain na'anek Yeshua ben Nun. Unless he knows that he is on the level of Yeshua ben Nun, who was answered when he fell on his face. What the Gemara is telling us, Rashi explains, that a person should not look like he's going to daven in such an outward, public, intense way, and then if he's not answered, it looks crazy, it looks silly that he's falling on his face. And therefore, unless you're someone like Yeshua ben Nun, where you know you'll be answered with such a explicit and a tefillah that really stands out, you should not do it. Shnei Amar, how do we know that Yeshua did this? As it says in the pasuk, V'yomer Hashem al Yeshua, Kum lech lama zeh ata nofel panacha. Because the pasuk says, Hashem asks Yeshua, why are you falling on your face? You should get up. That's one thing Rabbi Elazar says. Rabbi Elazar says more. V'amar Rabbi Elazar, Ein adam chashuv r'shai lachkor sak. Also, a person should not put himself in sackcloth. He should not wear sackcloth. Because again, for a similar reason, it's an extreme thing to do, and if your tefillah is not answered, it looks very bad upon you that you put on sackcloth and you still do not have your tefillos answered. Ela imkein na'ane ki Yoram ben Achav. You should only do something like this if you are Yehoram ben Achav, who did this and was acknowledged, was answered. Shnei Mar, as it says in the pasuk, Vayhi kishmo hamelach es divrei isha. When Yoram heard the words of the woman, Vayikras begadav, and he ripped his clothing. V'hu over ha'choma, and he was passing by the wall. Vayar ha'am v'nei sak al bisaro, and the nation saw that he was wearing sackcloth. V'gomer. So again, we see that only individuals can do such things. Vam Rav Elazar says more so, Lo hakol b'kriya v'lo hakol b'nefila, that not everyone is answered through ripping their garments, and not everyone by falling on their faces. Only certain individuals are answered by doing these things. Moshe v'Aaron b'nefila, Moshe and Aaron were answered when they fell on their faces. Yeshua v'Kalev b'kriya, and Yeshua and Kalev were answered when they did kriya, when they ripped their clothing. Moshe v'Aaron b'nefila, dechsiv v'yipol Moshe v'Aaron al paneihem. We know that it says in the pasuk that Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces, and their tefillos were answered. Yeshua v'Kalev b'kriya, and Yeshua and Kalev ripped their clothing. Dechsiv, as it says in the pasuk, Yeshua ben Nun v'Kalev ben Yefune kiru b'gdehem, and Yeshua and Kalev ripped their clothing. Maskiv la Rav Zera. Rav Zera asks a question on Rabbi Elazar. V'yitim Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, and some say it's Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani. Ihava ksiv Yehoshua kedakamers. I understand if it would have said the pasuk Yehoshua, but it says Hashdach ksiv v'Yehoshua. Right after it says that Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces, it says and Yoshua v'Yoshua ha v'ha'avid, which tells you that not only did it work when Yeshua tore his clothing when he did kriya, but he also did fall on his face like Aaron and Moshe, and he was answered in that way as well. Rav Elazar gives us a similar teaching. Vamar Rav Elazar. Rav Elazar teaches, Lo akol b'kima v'lo akol b'hashtachavia, that when it comes to the nations of the world greeting Bnei Yisrael at the time of redemption, so not everyone will be standing and not everyone will be bowing. Melachim b'kima, the kings will be standing for us. V'sarim b'chshtiva, and the princes will be bowing to us. Melachim b'kima, the kings will be standing for us. T'chsiv, because it says in the pasuk, Kol Mar Hashem Gol Yisrael Kadosho, Livzo Nefesh Meta'iv Goy Le'Eved Moshlim Melachim Yiru V'Kamu. So it says the Melachim will kamu, they'll stand. V'Sarim B'Shachavia, and the princes will bow. T'chsiv Sarim Yishtachavu. And it says that the princes will bow to us. Maskav Rav Zera, V'Timer Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani. Once again, Rav Zera, and some say Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, asked a question on Rav Elazar. Ihava ksiv v'sar mishtachavu k'tekamris. If it would have said, and the princes will bow, like you said, hashtag ksiv sar mishtachavu, but since it says not vi, but it just says sar mishtachavu, ha v'ha'avud. What does it teach you? It teaches you that the princes will bow and stand up for Bnei Yisrael. And now our parak concludes. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak teaches us, Af ani omer, lo hakol le'ora, v'lo hakol le'simcha. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak teaches us that when it comes to Olam Haba, when it comes to the next world, not everyone will merit the Ora, the light in the next world, and not everyone will merit Simcha in the next world. Tzadikim le'ora, tzadikim will benefit from the light of the next world. Visharim le'simcha, and those who are righteous, those who are upright, will get the simcha. Tzadikim le'ora dechsiv, tzadikim will get the light, as it says, or zarua la tzadik, that or light is given to those who are tzadikim. Visharim simcha, and to the upright will have simcha dechsiv. V'yishrei leiv simcha, and those who are upright, those who are righteous, will have simcha. Hadran alach, Perek Me'emasai, Yishakach Gadol, and please God, Be'ez Hashem, on Wednesday we'll begin the Perek of Seder Taanis.